Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horror review. I was meant to have a few more people on tonight, but looks like I have been left on my own, so crack on and do it. So, as you know, normally every other Tuesday we've been playing at the Alien RPG, taking a break for Christmas, so thought it was a big good opportunity to look at the actual movie that started this whole franchise off. So, tonight, talking about Alien, original movie, 1979 by Ridley Scott, tells the tale of the crew of the Nostromo who get rerouted from their normal run back to Earth to LV-426, where they encounter a strange ship, alien eggs, and horror ensues. So this is an absolute classic movie. You know, this is the one that set the tone and made this whole genre. Like, if it wasn't for this movie, I don't think science fiction horror would have went the way it did, because it's a move from sort of the cheesy 70s look of sci-fi, because up until then, like the 70s, nobody knew what to do with technology. And you're seeing a bit of this, especially in the Mother's Chamber, the light bulbs everywhere. That was their idea of, science fiction was, oh, let's stick a load of light bulbs and have them flashing, and that's machinery. Where with this movie, at least, there was an attempt, particularly within Nostromo, to have real world technology, microcomputers actually, it looks very dated now, but when you think back then, it's easy to pass for modern, it's like modern technology being put in a futuristic environment. So worked absolutely fantastically. The whole tone of this movie as well, I'm going to thank H.R. Geiger for that, especially with the design of the xenomorph itself. But this is one that took a different tone. Everything else, it's been sci-fi up to that point. It's always been bright, glistening, like white jumpsuits, everything just looking, out there. And I think that's partly to do with the advent of Technicolor. It's when things went from black and white to Technicolor. Oh, let's use all the colors, and that was make everything as bright as possible. So this was the sort of shift of that. This is the shift from the 70s to the 80s, and you can sort of tell that straight away with the tone of the movie. But yeah, you get the scene, they're waking up from hypersleep, and still, like, you go into the hyper, like, you can tell the sci-fi elements where they make it look like a normal ship, and then the sci-fi elements. So, for example, when you go from a normal ship, it looks like a ship. It could be, it could be on the sea. It could be a tugboat. It could be an aircraft carrier. You have that sort of look about it. But then when you go in the elements of, like, the hypersleep chamber, it's all bright white. Using the fluorescent lights and all that kind of stuff. So you still got that element of, like, the late 70s still holding of how do we imagine this technology. And it's easy to sit back now and laugh, but even in the 80s, like kind of the 90s, you could not imagine the world today. It was impossible. Like, the technology wasn't there. You have to understand that the 90s was an explosion, and we've rapidly progressed in a period of like 20, 30 years. It had taken hundreds before. So you can understand why there's still that bit of, sort of jarriness. They wanted to look real, they wanted to look gritty. And what this is a horror movie, it's a straight up horror movie. If you even look at the trailer, like, you're not giving anything away. It's not a sci-fi spectacular, it's not a space opera, it's a horror movie. Like, you're not meeting you're not seeing anything that you're going to enjoy. One of the like the groundbreaking aspect of this, because sci-fi has always been sanitized. Like, up until the end, you'd Flash Gordon, you'd Buck Rogers in the 25th century, and even Star Trek was still a very clean, sanitized look to it. When you go to this, you've got that sort of Wild West, desolate planets, they're not fit for human life. You're actually getting the wind in your face. Oh, and
where have you go to do
evening. Oh,
sorry, I'm late. Yeah, I got the times wrong. Sorry.
I know. So thanks for turning up, man.
No, that's fine.
I was going for the same time as we'll be playing the game.
I know, and I haven't got that right yet either.
Well, good to have you, man. I just started off my intro there, talking about this, how this was a shift in tonal atmosphere from the 70s into the 80s.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this movie so different.
Yeah, it was. Although they'd kind of gone for that lived-in look, hadn't they, with the technology and stuff, which I think we first saw in Star Wars a couple of years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it wasn't that.
Well, it's only drastic. It's only 2 years, but
that's right. Yeah,
there's still that aspect of the 70s did not understand technology.
No.
And we're going from like I said, Buck Rogers and all that, and even Star Trek, the original series, bright lights, lots of color. That's how they did it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, tonally, there was a vast difference, and there weren't many. I don't think there had been many, like serious science fiction horror films.
There's Angela just letting you on your way. Thanks, Angela.
I mean, since perhaps the 50s, when you had a number of the kind of horror films would delving with the science fiction elements, like
The Fly would be one, War of the Worlds.
Yes. Day the Earth Stood Still and all this. Well, that wasn't as much horror, was it? But yes, they came from outer space and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it was an attempt to do a serious science fiction horror film, which we'd had a lot of the swashbuckly stuff, like say Buck Rogers and Star Wars
and creature features. Don't forget the sort of they come into the creature feature element, which were their own thing. Big robot. It didn't matter whether it was a big spider or a big robot. It was something big going through the town, crashing, people screaming. That was its own genre.
Yeah.
This was something different.
It was dark. It was very, very dark, wasn't it? I think, and that was. I mean, we had a bit of that in the 70s, I suppose. Cinema got darker, didn't it? I think, like the tone. Thinking of
the Giallo was out. The Giallo franchise. The horror, the video nasties were coming out then. There was a shift from once again, this is going from the 60s. The brightness of the 60s into the sort of
the griminess. Cinema in 70s was grimy, I think. Yeah. And you saw that a lot in some of the crime thrillers and things that came out as well around the 70s. It was like, I don't know whether it was just a zeitgeist, like just a collective unconscious thing. It would just be with the state of the world as it was at that time. So I mean, I barely remember the 70s.
I only came at the tail end, so I've limited.
Yeah. but that's kind of what my parents tell me. Things were grim in the 70s, and I think it was reflected in the cinema of the time, much as it is now.
Wasn't in sci-fi? That was the thing.
No, we'd had because was it because it was more sci-fi was more aimed at a younger audience before then? Would that be a fair assessment?
There is, but also my stand on it has always been in the 70s they could not comprehend the technology.
No,
it's difficult to we can look back and we see the changes, but somebody 10 years younger than us, 20 years younger than us, cannot imagine a time before the internet.
No,
they can't imagine a time before personal computers, for example. Because don't forget, a personal computer, like the digitapes, took up an entire floor, not just a room, but an entire floor in an office for storage.
Yeah.
It was just, they couldn't wrap their heads around, they wanted to translate this technology on the screen, and it's okay, writers can do it, because you don't have to worry in the visual medium, but on TV, that's why the light bulb thing, look at The Exorcist 2, where, the brain transfer was a big light bulb, because that's the only thing that can comprehend. Bright light means technology, because that's how they represented everything.
Right. Yeah.
But do you get a bit of that in this movie when you think about like the Mother's Chamber, for example? That's classic 70s sci-fi.
Yeah. I mean,
Light
it's
bulbs
probably,
everywhere.
yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of something you'd see in 2001, the way it's lit as well.
Yeah. The cryo sleep chamber.
Yes, because that's brightly lit as well, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the rest of the
way that's the only way they could think of, technology. And you see it in so many movies. That's it. Oh, light everything brightly, make it white.
Yeah, it has to be
make
white.
It pristine and clean.
Sterile.
That means that, sterile medicine. And it's the only way they sort of could comprehend of that. So you can actually see, even in the Nostromo, everything else is grounded. It's realistic. You could imagine living on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they did try to make it look like an oil rig or something, right? Yeah. Or how we imagine oil rig. I mean, I've never been on one. I don't know, but it's how I imagine an oil rig to look. These kind of very functional corridors. There's nothing aesthetic about them. It's just purely functional, right?
Yeah, and this is essentially a tugboat.
Yeah.
It's just a trawler carrying a load of cargo. It's a cargo ship. They're not meant to be. Look at cargo ships today in the ocean. They're not beautiful things.
No.
They're just big, ugly contraptions that are just designed.
Well, it's a platform. It's a raft with you can stick containers on, right?
Just hump as much stuff as possible. And you get that where Star Wars was a space opera, so they wanted the big imposing ships. They wanted it to look glitzy and glamoury. So like on
the big imposing ships were meant to look threatening and terrifying, right? Using scale to frighten.
What do you call that one? The Millennium Falcon was meant to be. It was meant to be a tug ship.
Yeah,
because there's drawings of that bit. That square bit was meant to fit onto the back of a big container and push it.
Yeah.
What would it be, the Carillion Corvette or whatever it was called? But even I had to look flashy, and I mean, it didn't do what it was meant to do.
Yeah.
Where this thing's just a giant tug ship. That's it. With a command center can detach.
Yeah. What's this?
I've always enjoyed sci-fi horror, and Aliens nothing is scarier than the big. Yeah, you kind of get a bleak future in this as well.
Yeah,
it's not a nice time to live.
It's not. I mean, I don't know. I watched it again this time. There wasn't anything about the film that jumped out and made me think that the future was necessarily bleak, other than the fact that the technology was lived in and all this kind of stuff. But and I was wondering if it was because we were aware of the later films that we kind of think of it that way. If we'd first seen that in 1979, would that have been what we came away with? I wasn't so sure, but
there's two aspects to this. If you're looking on a superficial level, it's an alien, it rips apart a ship and nobody has a chance. Ash is the linchpin in this that brings that other lure, the betrayal.
Yeah.
In order,
and then he was working for the company, and they were willing to sacrifice everybody for what they were after, which I guess it is just like an exaggeration of well, is it an exaggeration?
Is it? Look at today.
Corporates today.
Let's be honest, if a corporate could bump you off so you don't look what they do to people just for saying they don't like a book or a movie. They're quite happy to go and ruin people's lives and have them left homeless on the streets for something as innocent and going, I didn't really like that, and here's my reasons. They will come after you if you have any sort of traction and they think you're a threat.
Yeah.
So the corporate entity, and I didn't know it was well, and you told me, really, it was just, that's only as you delved into it. It was just the corporate, you got that idea of the people in the back in the boardrooms just
casually making these decisions. And not really worrying about the human cost. I mean, does that would it? I mean, I don't know if that made me think that the whole future was necessarily bleak.
Maybe working for that company obviously was.
I mean that's pretty good. Really,
you'd be looking, you're putting your CV out to the competition.
Yeah. I kind of wondered if it's because we became more aware of how things are done. I mean, this is it was a snapshot, wasn't it, of the future in that one instance, and so I don't know if it gave that much away, and we're kind of filling in the blanks now, knowing what we know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
am I
does. Yeah,
talking?
because it is hard to look at this in isolation
Yeah.
because
Now that we've been, with the however many movies,
and
comic books,
we've been, like I
novels.
said, the reason for this stream tonight is because we've been playing a game based on it, which actually
Yeah, that's right.
even goes further into not just Whale and Utami, but the world, the socioeconomics, the politics, the rivals, and the fact that there's paid coursers out there that companies will have to raid the ships.
Yeah.
And and this is just legitimized. It is the Wild West, in space. But it's still got that company veneer of we're nice, but all this naughty stuff goes on underneath the surface.
Yeah. So because I guess when they first came up with this film, it wasn't as well thought out. The background and all of that wasn't necessarily as well considered at that point. It was just an excuse to get these people in this spaceship in this situation. That I kind of wonder if we're filling in the blanks retrospectively when we think of it.
But the seeds are there. The thing is, there have been horror sci-fis before, like Apollo 11 and ones like that. They're just so hammy, like no attempt made.
Yeah.
So when you think of movies that got have been about, this isn't the only sci-fi horror in the 70s, but this is one that laid the seeds of a deeper plot. Like you wanted to know more. Most other sci-fi horrors that come out, you just took it face value and that was it. And if this was just another sci-fi horror that you wouldn't mentally fill in the blanks, or it wouldn't have had the legs if there wasn't the seed there. That's the thing.
I suppose. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, it's created this this interest and enough for people to write books about it and do comic books and make other films. So I mean, yeah, perhaps you're right. Perhaps I'm
no, but it's easy to it's easy to have preconception. That's why sometimes you step back and you just try and watch a thing in isolation. Don't binge. Like so thing I have a bad habit of doing. I'll watch one, like, I'm gonna binge all 10 movies and not sleep at night, and then it's like, no, I gotta think about this. So let's just look at it.
Yeah. No, I mean, for this as well, I watched the original was the only one I could find. I couldn't find the special edition, so I don't know. And it's been a while since I've seen the special edition, so I don't know if there was actually anything added in the special edition that would kind of reinforce that idea.
I have the DVD, and it's all the special features, and the special features are the deleted scenes, the cut scenes.
Yeah,
and to be honest, there's nothing else really added that gives you
there's no real
it doesn't really give you anything.
Look into the world. Yeah,
there's one scene I'm glad they didn't put in, and that was the cocoon scene, because that would have destroyed the sequel.
Well, it kind of messed everything up a little bit if that was in there. The whole cycle, life cycle of Alien, right?
That would have completely destroyed it. Where by leaving that out, and then we got Aliens, which I think we'll probably talk about at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
But you still had that mystery. That it's a case of which movies make the problem. The mistake today is they show, they don't tell, or they tell, they don't show. They over-explain, they go into the minutiae, and they don't leave any wonderment.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think I was reading a book a while back. It was about the stories of H.P. Lovecraft and how he left elements unexplained, just because I don't know, things perhaps more frightening that way, because there are certain things that we wouldn't know or shouldn't know or about the universe. I don't know, and so leaving those little bits out unexplained, it just leaves the reader or the viewer just thinking, how, why.
Yeah. And that's a never balance. That's the tricky thing about writing or creation. If you over-explain, then you ruin all mystery.
Yeah.
If you don't leave enough seeds there, then there's no wonderment. It's just an empty story. And I think this is what made this different, because there has to be something that made this different. Because, like I said, it's not the only sci-fi horror movie of the time. It's not the only creature feature. It's not the only alien movie. It's a combination of things that made this its own thing, and it made it groundbreaking. And that's what you sort of I want to look into, is what did happen, or what were the seeds that were planted. And one thing is that, first of all, the tonal change, where they still had the bright sci-fi stuff, but they're managing to merge it with the grittiness, the sort of grindhouse look.
I mean, do you think it was like a deliberate choice just to remind viewers that this is a sci-fi movie?
No, I just think it's a product of the time. I just think they didn't understand how to, like, if they did a sleep chamber now, it wouldn't be brightly lit, it would be subdued, and it would just be functional. Yeah, it would just be a chamber. It would be built into the wall. You'd sit on it, and you wouldn't even think. Look at Halo.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Halo franchise. They don't make it's not. They're just built into the wall.
Yeah,
and they just you pop in, you switch off. That's it. Where this was his own thing. It was almost treated with reverence. The hypersleep chamber, because of the nature of sci-fi. So I just think it was a product of the time that they just still hadn't quite figured that out.
Yeah. And so when you kind of finally visit the rest of the ship, did you think it was meant? Well, I mean, you're saying it's a product of its time. I was wondering, could it be? It was trying to create a juxtaposition between that bit and the rest of the ship that was all dark and grimy. And if you kind of go to the other scenes where you have when they're eating, for example. Sorry about that. When they're eating,
it's a galley.
And
has
that's
that sort of
sorry about that. Yes. There's that whole. Excuse me, just 1 second.
All right, no problem. We'll get back to that.
Yeah,
somebody wants you bad.
No, somebody's trying to call me. So you kind of have that kind of, whether it's meant to be the bits where the crew kind of inhabit, they've attempted to make them look more like your 70s spaceships as we envisaged them at the time. It's only when you kind of go into the more functional parts of the ship that you get the griminess. I don't know if is that deliberate. That would strike me as something that some clever bloke, was it Sid Mead that did all of the
he did all the spaceship design?
Yeah. Well, then that's the kind of thing I don't know if he did the interior sets or anything like that as well. But
probably
he was a smart guy, and I think he might have done stuff like that deliberately, potentially, to make it, the lived in bits being the safe area, and the more functional areas are where the bits were creepy, where people tended to get killed in the dark.
But I think as well, these were functional. I mean, it was a tugboat, and it was probably been in service for how many years as this technology developed. So you'd probably find as well bits of the ship were retrofitted.
Yeah,
because you didn't get like in the 70s, it would have just all been glistening and white and glowy and everywhere.
Yeah,
and it actually hurt your eyes after a while. Just think of the Buck Rogers series, like that genuinely hurt the original Battlestar Galactica series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of hurt your eyes if you watched that for too long, because just the brightness and tone just was a bit much. But you get there was a purpose. So this could have been just, we've now got the new chamber and it got built in and it was brand spanking new, but they didn't bother building a brand new ship.
No.
They just retrofitted that area.
That bit in. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
They upgraded the galley now and again. So there you go. They retrofitted that area. But when you get to the bunks, for example, like they're just normal bunks. And you got posters and everything else, and it wasn't still sort of had the white tone, but it was subdued.
It was lived in, I think. Yeah.
Look at
made to look like it had been around a while and used.
Look at the cockpit.
Yes.
It had had little bobbleheads and stuff, but it was lived in. But it had the dark subdued because it was different part of the ship. But it's when you get down to the bowels, like the storage room. Well, who the hell's going to dicky up the storage room?
Yeah. Well, with the cargo bay. We're going to do a paint job.
Go to any warehouse, and you go to any building that has its own warehouse. You've got the shiny offices and the shiny reception, then you get the warehouse, and the tone changes the minute you go to the top step.
Yeah.
You know, it's not indifferent to today.
Yeah. Perhaps that's it.
But it was clever though, the fact that they made that attempt.
Yeah. Yeah. I say I don't know if it was coming from that. Well, I guess one thing it does it tonally it sets makes a big change, doesn't it? I suppose as well. Where you got things like Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica, it was all very hopeful. Star Trek, it's all very hopeful, and here they were trying to they were trying to frighten and intimidate, I think, weren't they?
Well, absolutely.
It's all very
look at the original
brutish.
trailer.
Yeah,
one of the best trailers ever. You know, just you have no doubt that you're going into a horror movie. Like no messing about.
yeah.
And you got no hint of the storyline.
No. I mean,
like you see people, like even Nash, you see him spinning about, no, but you don't know why. You hear people screaming, you don't know why, but it's brilliantly done.
It's made to obfuscate. But that's probably just because of the way they made trailers back then as well, right? In the fact that they weren't trying to reveal too much of the story. And you know, there are some major elements of Alien that they wouldn't want people to know about beforehand, before going in necessarily. I mean,
but today it's all out and platter. You know,
well, that's right. I mean,
you don't even need to watch a movie.
That's it. It pretty much tells you everything you need to know is there in the trailer, right? You don't need to go to see the film unless you want to just switch your brain off for a couple of hours and have lights poured into your eyes. But yeah, back then I think trailers they were probably shorter. They showed less. It was it would have been enough to get people in, I think.
Oh yeah, because you're definitely going to see something different.
Yeah.
You knew you were going to see a horror movie, but the intriguing part was it's in space, and this could have been set in a submarine. You know, it still had that. I think they're maybe thinking a submarine or something. You know, you're getting that.
Well, that was done later, wasn't it? They did that later with things like Leviathan. It was based on the same story, but in a submarine. It was it was neat.
Let's go through the notes here and actually go through the plot, because because we're talking about them waking from hypersleep and all. Even though it's a sci-fi thing, they're basically scratching their bits and going and making breakfast. You know, it wasn't
because they were everyman. They wanted to kind of demonstrate these weren't like super astronauts. These are everyman, right? These are the blue collar types.
Yeah,
just like
you and Space Odyssey, 2001. Everyone, it was almost like a ballet when they got up, and you got the music in the background. Where this is just like, right, get on with it. You know,
exactly, right?
Hate this. We're down the job. Hate this.
Yeah, so it was the idea being that they wanted to kind of portray these people as everyman, and that this was routine. Whereas I suppose in 2001, films like that, it was supposed to be still kind of new-ish, and you know, it was we hadn't gotten much further than the moon. Whereas Alien, that they're trying to show that, you know, this is routine, this is what people do, this is how it works. These are just regular people. These aren't astronauts. They're just regular people that are doing this job, and are just about to get into a nasty situation.
Tugboats, you know, if you think about it, they're not even the miners.
No,
they would have went to the mining colony. They just pick it up. You know, they're long distance truckers.
Yeah, truckers. Yeah,
that's it. You know, and that hadn't been done before.
No,
like that tone of movie hadn't been done before, and that back then would have been very refreshing.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
and there's no gobbledygook if you think about it. No
real technical.
Yeah, just none of that blah 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 blah. The hyper blah 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 blah. There's none of that nonsense. That was all just thrown to the side. It's I can get it to work this time. You know, change the fuses. You know, it was that sort of language used.
Talk about wires and insulation, and that's technical.
Yeah, and not really knowing, like, you've got two engineers who are goof off at every opportunity, and they have to be prodded. But that, you know what I mean, you get that in the workspace. You've always got those bloody
It's the
ones you have to
banter,
watch.
right? It's the
Yeah.
workspace banter almost. Yeah, and I like that, and I think they were probably my favorite two characters because of that. Quite early on, I
Mhm.
quite liked that. Yeah, because they were. They were just people. They could have been factory workers, right? They could have just been anyone, that's how they were being portrayed, and they were just going to be placed in a terrible situation that they had to try and deal with. You know, it could have been any of us.
But if there had been like your typical sci-fi people that have all been experts in their field, that have been this, that, and the other,
Yeah,
like even Ripley, Ripley's a hero, and she basically became an iconic character. But
yeah,
here she was middle management at the start. She was that annoying one. Have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? Oh, come on, I just want to, that bitch is at me again. Would you just leave me alone?
Yes,
she's just your middle manager, the third officer,
yeah,
the supervisor who just always on your back. There was nothing really endearing about her.
No.
If this had been a normal run, say this had been a documentary about a crew, you would not have
she would have, or if it had been a sitcom, she'd be the one that everybody would be playing the tricks on, right? And and being horrible to.
By the book and all this, and not really. She wasn't an endearing character, and that's cool to see because that's the hero's journey, isn't it?
I guess, yeah. She was thrust into this position where she had to make the decisions, and well, it didn't turn out so well. Let's put it that way. But
yeah. But then again, that's sort of the horror as well. Because it's that insurmountable odds. It's like I'm not the apex predator anymore, and that's the beauty of the horror genre. It's like, oh, I'm not top of the food chain. Oh, it doesn't matter what I do, I have no chance in hell.
Yeah. And if the company are out to get you, there's very little you can do about it.
And that was the extra lure. You know what I mean? Not just added the extra lure on top of it. This would have been a very bland, paint by numbers horror movie without that action. Because they had the conversation at the start. Don't forget, they led this all up. They're talking about their bonuses. They're talking about, okay, what are we getting for this trip? We're entitled to this, so I'm not doing any. I'm down in tools and stuff because we haven't done this properly. I've just been thrown in this. Now we have to go salvage somebody, answer a disgrace call. That's in my job. And all that kind of comes into it.
Until they're reminded the regulations mean that they have to, or they lose, they forfeit all their shares, etc. Yeah. So, yes, it adds the level of, I don't know, but the level of realism. You get to identify with these characters more. Maybe. Do you think? Is that the intention?
If anyone's been in a crap job, in their life, and they know that there's always bits. The company's written things in their contracts you may not have 100% read or understood, unless you get a team of solicitors, a legal team to look over every contract before you sign it. There's 9 times out of 10 something in there designed to screw you over if things go wrong. It's when the job goes right, there's no problems.
Yeah.
But this is showing when things go wrong. Oh, right, now you've got to go and investigate this. I'm not trained for that. Doesn't matter. You either do it or you come back and get nothing. That's your choice. So you've been away for a year, and you're going to come back with nothing to, and obviously it's a real world. You've got bills to pay. You've got a family to look after. Probably it's the same as being on the Merchant Navy, for example, or in one of the cruise ship, or what do you call it? Not cruise ship. Well, probably cruise ship similar, but
like the
cargo ship,
Merchant Navy type stuff.
Yeah. So you're on a tugboat for 8 months carrying ISO containers, and then you get told, well, if you don't divert from your route and go here to this random island that picks up, well, guess what? You're still going to finish the job, but when you come back, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
Who does that? Who could do that in the real world?
Yeah.
So there's something, there's a reality brought into this that I don't think had ever been attempted before. I can't think of an example.
From around that time, no, neither can I really.
It's become the norm now. Like I said, it's hard.
Well, I think that's probably the legacy of this film, to a degree. Things became grimier. I mean, if you wanted to take a fairly heavy-handed example. If you look at the difference between 2001: A Space Odyssey and 2010,
Mhm.
and I know that they were meant to be like, it was the difference between American and Russian spaceships in that, but they definitely took on that alien aesthetic, I think, for the Leonov in 2010, which wasn't in 2001, of course, but it was supposed to be 9 years later, but they kind of grimed it up a bit to make it.
Yeah, 'cause it was popular. It worked.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, it looked. It's more real, right? I suppose. Maybe.
I think there was this aspect. They wanted this movie to be taken seriously. And that was the major difference, because even creature features back in the day, nobody took them seriously. Like, just there were matinees.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and kids went to see them, and big spider.
Well, they've had drive-in movie type stuff or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they weren't meant to be taken seriously. This was a different beast.
Yeah.
I know it didn't come out afterwards, but obviously they were told about the planetoid, but LV-426 would become the most iconic designation for anything. Anyone who's a sci-fi fan, or that, you hear that instantly.
They know. Yeah.
Brought in.
Yeah.
If they hadn't called it a Chiron, would that have worked? Like, it later became known as a Chiron. If they hadn't given it a name, like most things got in the 70s, everything got planets got names and stuff. Was there something about just having a designation that these were just,
I suppose,
spots on a map? Did that help with the mythos?
I mean, perhaps, yeah. Having it as just like a designation kind of makes it almost insignificant, I suppose, right? But we know better, and it makes it sound more. I don't know. It's a bit more brutal. Would that be an accurate term, do you think? Because
impersonal,
it's not,
the impersonal.
Yeah, that's
the
better
company. It's completely impersonal to its own crew.
That's a better description. Yeah. I think that, giving something a name, it's almost a bit arty, I think. And this kind of strips that away. Just says no, it's just these letters and numbers. That's what this thing's called, and it's brutish, and it fits. It kind of fits that tone. I think Chiron. Now, I don't know. Was that in the that comes up in the novelization? If I remember,
yeah, it comes up later. It wasn't that they just called it a planetoid, because remember the ship gets brought out of hypersleep early. They're only about halfway through their journey, and they're told to divert, but they can't even pick it up in the star maps.
Yeah,
I mean, they're having trouble trying to find out where they actually are, because Mother brought them out. And then they're just told it's a planetoid. So in the actual Alien movie itself, we had no idea. This is mythos that got built up. Actually, it gets LV-426 and Aliens. That's later on.
Yeah.
And then this is where the world building. I think it's from a sequel. The world building actually happens, but this is the seed.
Yeah.
And if this movie hadn't have got the tone right, if I hadn't got this correct, it would have just been another movie.
Yeah. But I mean, so it was.
Good evening, Harry man. Good to have you on. Twitch and YouTube.
So I mean, I watched it last night, but I can't. They never refer to it as a name or designation.
No. It's just a planetoid.
Yeah.
It's only in Aliens that it gets LV.
Yeah, it gets finally gets
but that became iconic with the franchise.
Yeah, and I think they ended up naming more places with the LV designation as well, didn't they? I think that crops up quite a bit, and I think in the role-playing game, isn't there's quite a few LV whatevers.
Oh yeah, because that's it became standard, and that's the way. But the fact that they don't have flying names for planets, and they don't, we'll get this whole idea that it is just commodities, and it is almost like it's the idea of the Wild West when they went out and they flagged the plot lands.
Yeah.
Do you remember that rush and they went out and that was the idea that the the plots were allocated, and then if you got your flag in the plot, that was you.
Yeah,
It's almost
yeah.
like that.
Similar
You
kind of
went
thing.
out into space.
Yeah, and I guess it makes sense for planetoids to kind of have these kind of designations, because it's not like even in Star Trek, weren't they? You'd have the planet would be named after the star, and it would be like something something and then a number.
Of the something system. And
Cygnus Alpha 2 or whatever it was. And
yeah, and but that's a big tonal change. And Battlestar Galactica was another one, because I think that was the darker sort of side of Star Trek.
Yeah,
it
was
the first sort of attempt, but like there's just a wee bit of a mindset change. You know, they could never bring these two worlds together. I think Battlestar Galactica was an attempt at it.
I think because it was, I still have this feeling that the Battlestar was marketing for a younger audience, and they had quite flashy names for planets, if I recall, in Battlestar, like Carolon or whatever. And I was wondering,
everything had a name.
Yeah, and that could have been maybe part of the lore for that as well, in terms of it was meant to be based on like mythology almost, wasn't it? A lot of those things, and so maybe that was
a lot of it was based on the astrological chart. You know, that's what they got. The colonies, 12 colonies of Earth, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but there was definitely an attempt there to, right, we want to do something different. We're tired of Buck Rogers. We're tired of Star Trek's fine, but we want something different. There's like a yearning. And I just think this movie, and also we want something for, you know, everything's aimed towards kids, but adults can enjoy this too. This is the sort of shift that the younger generation are growing up, but what's for the adults to still enjoy?
Yeah. It was a darker...
Adults still buy cinema tickets at the end of the day. Adults still go to movies.
Yeah. It was definitely a darker turn than we'd seen previously with Battlestar. And I don't know if that was... that would have had no influence, I don't think, on
no,
Alien
not a direct, but
it was,
you can see the mindset. You know, you can see that there's a mindset of trying to go that direction.
Yeah. Is that an attempt perhaps to kind of try and make sci-fi more adult? Maybe.
Well, I think they were trying to, like, the longevity. They wanted the adult audience too. They wanted to be able to bring this into adult, because God, what was about at the time? You know, creature features, they were kind of waning because they'd been done. Universal Monsters had been done. That's, you know, where next to go.
Yeah, I think it was. What else was there around there? It would be more fantasy movies, like your Sinbad's.
Tiger and came out around by that time, wasn't it?
A little bit earlier than that, of course, was the Burroughs movies that they'd made. Hammer made, wasn't it, as well? I think we talked about this recently. The Doug McClure style, they were all around that time as well, and they were all very campy and fun.
And that's fine, but it's not, you know, and it's for the almost teenage audience, for the like early 20s, but this was definitely more tonal change for an adult, you know, I mean, 18 above.
I mean,
mature.
It was, I guess, yeah. And Alien was obviously purely an adult movie. It was definitely this adult movie. That sounds wrong, but it was definitely a movie for grown-ups.
Unfortunately, that's an Americanism, you know.
Yeah.
Everything's either for kids or porn. You know, there's no in between. Where at least there was a bit of nuance back then, that grown-up movies say, you know, as an adult, you're allowed to have a more mature taste than a 10-year-old. Where today, it seems to be you're not allowed to have that. We live in strange times at the moment.
We do. We do indeed. So so maybe there was starting to make a shift. What was Battlestar? That was 78.
Yeah, that's.
I think
this is all the shift. Year. Like I said, it's all the shift.
So we had Star Wars in 77, which was all bright lights and laser guns and stuff. And then we have Battlestar.
All the grounded stuff was on the planet.
Yeah,
but once you went into space, it was pew pew pew, shiny lights, and sorry, I've been corrected, because Chris, you didn't look up Google or anything. How's Admiral Tarkin doing, by the way? Muppet. Oh dear. Yeah, but you had all that stuff. How's that doing, by the way? Actually, we can't really talk about Alien because yeah, certain movies are coming out and it's not going to be good.
Mm.
But yeah, we're seeing that tonal shift, and as things do, it's nice. It's cool to actually be able to see the pivoting points of where things went the direction, because this was the 80s became an iconic decade for horror, for example.
Yes.
Still, people look at the 80s and go, "Yep, can't be topped," because that was just where the ingenuity, where I always say, look at the special features of any movie and look at the special effects team. You'll know what horror is about.
Hmm.
Because it was those guys making up their recipes and ideas, and
Well, it's still practical as well, right?
yeah. So
Still
that's
practical effects.
sort of a golden age of that time. People, especially looking at movies today, people are starting to look back. I'm finding myself starting to look back now, going, "Okay, what can I watch again, or what can I revisit?" Because
well, don't worry, because
nothing.
whatever film you were thinking of enjoying, they're probably going to remake anyway, right?
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Mm.
Another thing that brought in here was the space jockey. That was one of the greatest mysteries of sci-fi horror for decades.
It was, and
that was a talking
and
point.
it was never explained. It
No.
was never really explained, and I don't know if we needed it explaining. That was the thing. That was it. It was a mystery, and I mean, I think we've spoken about this in the past, about the way the later films came along and started chipping away at the mystery, which kind of diminished the alien a little bit. And I'm talking mainly about the more recent efforts.
By the way, folks, you wonder why everyone's tired when we're doing the RPG games. Is because they're actually 10-hour sessions. About 4 hours is the game, and the rest of the time is us just riffing about the universe and the what ifs.
So the space jockey. I mean, for one, it's an iconic image, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just when you see that thing, and you're not quite sure what it's sitting in. This thing. It's kind of, and it's massive. It's really big. And you don't know if it's sitting in some kind of turret or if it's like is a pilot or whatever. It's just this weird fossil, isn't he?
Because they even make note that it's been fused into the seat, so they can't actually discern what it was. So how much of that was the space jockey, how much of it's things actually like stalactites growing over the top of it. It's been warped out of recognition.
Yeah, because it's that old. But I mean, obviously, there is the hole in the chest, isn't there? In that thing,
and that's
which
where
alludes to alludes to something untoward going on. But that, I mean, I think it symbolized. I mean, I remember at the time, and I wouldn't have been very old when this was out. I remember you used to go to the cinema and they'd have all these cards. You'd have like the poster of the film, and they'd have little stills from the film, kind of just shown underneath, arrayed underneath the poster. You'd see all these they were like postcards, but there were photographs of scenes from the film, and that was one. That it was the space jockey was one that you always saw. There's just this, and it became, in my mind, it just became synonymous. It was that was like you saw that and you knew exactly what it was and what film we were talking about at that point.
Yeah, and that takes work.
Yeah,
you don't just accidentally do that.
No.
That's good storytelling, because, like I said, there's been umpteen at this point. I think people were burnt out with sci-fi at the sort of late 70s.
Yeah. Well, it
was time for it to go in a different direction, because just too much, too flashy, exhausting to watch.
Yeah. And again, I don't know when the script was originally written. I think it was quite some time before the film actually came out that the script was written. And maybe it was one of those things that, Star Wars, that was popular a few years ago. Science fiction is pretty big, so maybe we can throw in this script that we've got about this horror this monster in space.
Mhm.
So I don't know, maybe it was riding on, because I think the sci-fi thing, it did hang on for a while. We had Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Star Trek the Motion Picture, all these
Once
big,
again, that was a
big,
cheat. You know, what I mean, it was the
yeah,
change in tone, because up to the end it was just cheesy and daft, and people couldn't take it seriously, and it was just
yeah,
it was running the end of his course, so something had to happen.
yeah.
And I think it was
Um,
Star Wars. You know, that obviously changed it because it showed. Hold on, you can have something look like an actual functioning aircraft on the ground,
Yeah.
and operating like a aircraft in the ground, and that's fine. And then it can still be the Starcraft, but have it look as if you've got ground crew and normal, instead of this super hyperbolic chamber that, you know, almost ghost like that they used to fly out.
yeah. But I kind of think that it was that script had probably, I have it in my head, and I could be completely wrong, but I've just got this. I seem to recall reading that script had been floating around for a while before it was finally decided that somebody was going to make something of it, and I'm sure it would have been the sudden interest in sci-fi that would have kickstarted all of that. But it was a big tonal change. It was a risk, right? I think it was a risk.
Absolutely. Who would have? People would have wanted to see a horror movie, but putting those two genres together in that way,
Yeah,
and there's no mistaking from the trailer. Like you're going to get frightened.
Yeah,
that's, you know, in the
that's the intention. Yeah, and
so you're a casual viewer, we're not going to see this movie.
No,
wanting flashy lights, and somebody wanting to go see Star Wars, for example, was not going to see this movie under no circumstances. You weren't bringing your kids to see this movie.
Yeah, so it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, obviously, not going to be child friendly.
Yeah,
but I wondered if it might, being sci-fi, it might have got a few more people in that wouldn't necessarily go to see a horror
once
film.
again, the adult audience, because when everything's geared towards kids, and it just gets annoying. You know, like imagine watching a kids channel all the time. That's your only source of entertainment. And as an adult, you're like, I'm beyond this. You know, you're wanting something tailored for you, but you still remember having fun.
Yeah.
And this is where, like I said, the two meshing together just where it changed everything. And yeah, it was a risk, but
it paid off.
It well and truly paid off, because this movie was made on a budget of 11 million.
Ooh,
and it brought in 184.7 at the box office at the time.
I mean, they sound like big numbers now, right? Well, back then, I mean, 11 million, that would have been quite a budget back then, right?
Yeah, but it still made more than enough. You think about the blow on a, like 184 million, that's not even that's spent on reshoots for crap movies that they didn't think through the first time. You know, the inflation's just ridiculous. But being made in that was a hell of a risk. 11 million, 1979 is a hell of a risk. So you had to have faith in it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, Ridley Scott at that time, I mean, he'd not done a huge amount of feature films.
No. This was,
I mean, what was The Duelists? Probably a couple of years before that, I think, which was a completely different, you know, neither horror nor sci-fi, but a historical kind of drama. And then suddenly here he is, given 11 million to make a science fiction horror film.
But we'll say that, you know, with a good story, and he just basically had the talent and faithful adaptation of, you know, get the idea of the story and what it was doing. It worked. And this is back when they did take risks. So, there might have been 10 of these movies made and flopped, but they're always chasing that lightning in the bottle.
Yeah.
And that's what made cinema exciting, and that's what made the 80s happen.
Yeah.
It's films like this that made the 80s happen, and I think people forget how iconic the 80s were in terms of cinema.
No, yeah. I mean,
the blockbuster.
Sometimes I wonder, because we kind of lived through it. It feels bigger than it was. I don't know.
No, because you look at the 90s, things started to taper off and started getting sanitized in the 90s and the early 2000s. You know what I mean? We've lived through that too.
Yeah.
And seen the tonal shift. And from 2010 onwards, you know what I mean, it's just become bland, safe, corporatized, and not exciting. And now we're seeing that the companies that are doing this are losing money hand over fist.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time before they start acquisition and buying and selling. It's all going on. They don't want you to see it, but the companies are in trouble because they've lost this element of risk taking.
Yeah. I mean,
So they're
and
never
then
going to
when,
find the new franchise. That's why they're retrading because they're burnt. They've no idea.
yeah, and then when you do see somebody taking a bit of a risk, you do see something quite special every now and again, don't you? I'm thinking of recent films, maybe things like Inception. That's not that recent anymore, but I'm thinking of something like that.
But there you go. You can't. You think of something that might be recent and it's 10, 15
It's
years
not,
old,
yeah.
20 years old.
I just putting that down on my age and my
No. It's
my
it's
brain
a phenomenon.
Yeah,
like I have been looking at movies for quite a number of years now, and I give a new movie as much a chance as an old one. I'm not one of these people that sits and the past was brilliant, but I have seen this trend.
Yeah,
and it's just become more and more apparent, and that's why retreads, reshoot. What am I excited about next year? A remake of Nosferatu. That's the only movie I'm genuinely excited about, and it's a remake.
Yeah, and to be
and
honest,
it's a second remake as well. It's not even a first remake.
No,
it's a second remake.
I don't even. I've even stopped actually looking to see what films are coming out now. To be honest, I don't really get excited about films anymore, which is
it's gone.
Yeah,
and that's nothing to do with age, because this was thinking, okay, we're not aiming at the kids, we're aiming at adults.
Yeah,
we want adults to actually get excited about movies again.
Yeah,
and it proved that there's nothing wrong with doing that.
No. I think 70s and 80s definitely some magic was going on in cinema then. I don't know. I don't know the stats, but I can imagine there were probably more filmmakers going bankrupt or whatever back then as well, and maybe more studios going bankrupt.
Yeah, but that's part of in rise and fall. But
that's
what keeps it alive.
You're taking a risk, and you'll get something that pays off.
It's same as small, medium enterprises. Small businesses crop up, fold, flat, but it creates a thriving economy. But now everything's corporatized.
Yeah.
There's no growth. There's no innovation.
No. And pretty much everything owned by Disney, right?
What's innovation? You get the latest rectangle thing replaced with the new rectangle thing with the new designation. Where if you think back to the days of Nokia, phones were different shapes and sizes. They'd tried anything.
Yeah.
There's excitement about them. What the hell does this thing do? The BlackBerry, you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff. That does not happen now. Everything's just on a decline, and you see people are talking more about silly things and not innovating or creating or inventing. That's a decline of, and I think art strictly linked to that. If you lose that creative spark and art doesn't inspire you, let's go back to Star Trek, the tricorder, the idea of communications.
Yeah.
That set a whole scene. People are inspired. Oh, can we actually do that? And look at the technology we have today. If it wasn't for imagination, for risk taking, for want a better word, you wouldn't even have thought of it.
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, it's all about it's more the money now, anyway, isn't it? That's kind of the problem.
It's about money. There's nothing wrong with making money. I don't get that mad attitude of today. Oh, making money is a bad thing. Of course not, because that's how you reinvest into the.
It is, but it means that people are less inclined to take the risks, which is what we're talking about, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but then they're losing money. That's what I said. They're losing money overall because these companies are in trouble.
Yeah.
Early 70s sci-fi was still influenced by the optimism gained by the lunar landing. Alien wouldn't have been successful until the end of the decade. It's more pessimistic. I suppose, but that I'm the point I'm making is that optimism. Yeah, that was the whole 70s, but people were getting tired of that. It was becoming nauseating.
Yeah,
I mean that was fine. The road in that sort of wave, but like all waves, you're riding that wave for a while, but it comes down.
Yeah, and the world was kind of changing quite a bit in the late 70s as well, wasn't it? And it was a bit of a grim outlook from the mid 70s onwards.
Yeah, we were going to do a Cold War
Vietnam and all the Cold War, etc. Yeah, And things were looking pretty grim. I mean, early 80s, where we were getting protect and survive manuals stuck through your door. It's difficult to be optimistic when you're kind of faced with that kind of stuff. So I think there was definitely that late 60s, early 70s. The moon landings made space cool and exciting, and the future looked great. But towards the end of the 70s, I think the veneer had kind of come off.
And this is just an example of what if. Like, people always love horror. You know, it doesn't matter how optimistic or what the times are. People love a good scare.
Yeah.
At least horror as a genre has the guts to go, okay, let's go try here. Here's something we haven't tried before. Let's go to this area. What's it like in the middle of the ocean? What's it like in the top of a hill?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a random tribe in a country that nobody knows about. Let's go and talk to them about their rituals and put it into a horror movie. Abominable Snowman's a good example. 1952. You know, that was what was it? Nepal. You know, I mean, Nepalese fairy tales. Nobody had heard of Nepalese fairy tales before, but right, cool. You've got a nice scary story there. Let's go. We'll use that.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's all gone now.
Yeah, well, I suppose. Yeah. No. But everybody's got access to all this information now, though, haven't they? I suppose, and you can just do a quick Google search, and they'll know more about it than anybody would have done.
Yeah, but why is creativity then going down the toilet?
Yeah.
In theory, having access to all this information should make you more inventive and should give you a wider scope, but yet people have just gone into this bubble of retread.
Yeah. Like, it's not like they're using this knowledge to kind of make a more realistic film, is it? They just seem to dumb things down even more for some strange reason. I don't know why.
It's just that, like I said, it's when you lose the spark of creativity, you lose risk taking. In fact, this movie was a risk, absolutely, but it paid off. And it shows that you just need to get that one idea, never give up.
I suppose. It's quite interesting because obviously Ridley went on to make Blade Runner after this, didn't he? Which was a very risky movie, wasn't it?
Absolutely, because it was a sci-fi movie. It wasn't quite a horror movie. It wasn't and
it was quite deep.
Future.
It required you to think. And obviously it didn't do so well. So I guess
it's an iconic, once again.
Now when we look back at it, we realize that it was an absolute classic. But back then it didn't draw people in. Now after Alien, and we kind of assuming that people were kind of tired of the bright and shiny future, and then along comes Alien, showing us that the future can be grim as well,
non-forgiving,
and then and then along we try push a little bit further with Blade Runner, perhaps kind of showing that Earth is being messed up. We've destroyed it ourselves. And we don't buy into that. But so
was it a bit too far too soon, or was it a bit closer to home? Because don't forget, this is out in the reaches of space. This is like
it's a
stranded
space film.
You can disconnect from it because it's out there. Blade Runner was right in your front doorstep.
Yeah, maybe that was it. It was
people are fun. I don't even pretend to understand people.
No,
people are a mystery to me. If I could figure people out, I'd be sitting on a throne somewhere,
Yeah, well, you might be making movies, very bland movies that dumb people want to go and watch. Maybe that's what we'd be doing if we were smart.
I would, if that was the sort of content, like even in this YouTube sphere, if I wanted to reach the masses, I know the sort of blandness I would have to be and jump on every popular bandwagon, but I would hate myself.
Yeah.
I would hate. It would be the worst job ever.
It wouldn't be very. It can't be very interesting, can it?
No, it would. It's. You wouldn't. You just don't feel fulfilled if you're just. Oh, I'm going to parrot the latest narrative, not have any thoughts of my own, and just say the safe stuff.
Yeah.
What's the point? It's like working in a call center or something. You're just.
Yeah.
Not thinking. That's why would you?
Yeah. I don't know.
No, that's but people, you need the boundaries pushed. You need someone to try something new, because even if that particular project fails, it gives birth to, it sows the seed for something else.
Yeah.
What we've got today, though, no risks being taken whatsoever,
No.
and a complete aversion, because the audience have actually been inured to risk, so they will see nothing anyway outside their comfort zone. So they've actually taught the audience to fear change or to fear anything new. There was what was it? The Creator came out.
Oh yeah,
And
the
people,
that was earlier this year, wasn't it?
It's supposed to be a brand new property. I didn't go because I'm burnt out with cinema. Unless I'm doing something for the channel, I don't go to the cinema anymore. And I used to go every week.
That might be something for another discussion, I think.
Yeah.
About the idea of going to the cinema, and I don't know if streaming has had something to do with it, and COVID. But
yes and no, because the experience is still, of going to the big screen and going to that, going to the cinema is still an enjoyable experience. But
yeah, it requires effort, though.
Movies, oh yeah, absolutely. You have to get up, you have to go to the place, and you have,
Yeah.
But I used to do that, like I said, every week, not even think twice.
Yeah.
So, and that was because of the movie, I was able to at least find something
I think
different.
that's the other thing. Yeah, at the moment, there doesn't seem to be a film out there or films out there that are
like Alien
inspiring you.
What are they thinking today? Oh, we're going to get a sequel prequel. Ridley Scott's going to make a sequel prequel between Alien and Aliens.
Well, why do you just leave it alone? Just leave it alone, Ridley.
Do you remember when burnt out directors and actors used to do a decent thing by taking a load of coke and get caught having a strangle wank? You know what I mean? And had the decency at least to go away disgracefully.
Yeah,
now they don't, because they're all preachy, clean living, martyrs to a cause.
Yeah, I kind of got annoyed with Ridley. He's got this. It's like he's the only one. He thinks he's the only one that can make an Alien film, or he's the only one that can make a Blade Runner film, or whatever.
But he never wrote the script.
No. But he's decided he's the authority, and he obviously knows better than everybody else. And obviously Prometheus was great.
I still haven't seen Covenant.
No, me neither.
I'm not going to.
No, not even to review it.
Nope.
No.
Like I've covered the entire Exorcist series, and some of that was very painful. I'm not going to see Believer.
Okay.
Because David Gordon Green can do one. An absolute prat. You know what I mean? And if I wanted to be Mr. Hip and Popular and get the clicks and likes, I'd be jumping in those movies, and doing the hot take.
Yeah.
But when I see somebody with no integrity, like, I have no interest in seeing that movie that Ridley Scott's going to do.
No.
He's burnt his bridges with me.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a shining star, I think, at the beginning. He did some really, really good films, and I don't know, they seem to have. Is he writing the scripts himself now or something?
Yeah,
is that what it is?
They've all went to George Lucas' direction. Let's go back to sci-fi. Let's go back to Star Wars.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah, let's go back.
George Lucas shot his creative load at Return of the Jedi. That was it. That was his creative energy spent. And plus, don't forget, he had writers and directors. He had the overall idea, but he had better people than him write those movies. Hence why they succeeded. Then he decided, late 90s, I'm going to be Mr. Big Ding Dong. I'm going to write it, direct it. I'm going to be, nobody tells me what to do. And he built his little bunch of sycophants, and people were afraid to question him.
All right. Yes, man. And
look how it turned out. Right. And now instead of looking at it as a warning, you've got these now well-renowned. Steven Spielberg's went the same direction. Ridley Scott, James Cameron.
Yeah.
He's another one's went that direction too. Revered in their time, and now they're a laughing stock.
Yeah.
Because their egos. Mark Miller, he did it with Sin City when he made I'm going to be Mr. Big Ding Dong and direct The Spirit. Yeah. Look how it turned out. We've seen the pattern. You see the pattern. Repeat.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting.
Maybe don't do that.
Yeah, that's all kind of making sense now, isn't it?
Yeah, you just as I said, if you step back and you don't get involved in the nonsense, and that's what's saying. Movie reviewing's become this. I really like this movie. If you don't like it, you're a terrible person. I don't like this movie. If you do like it, you're a terrible person. And that's the extent of the conversation. How do you find out what works and doesn't work? Like, why did this movie work? Like, in all intents and purposes, it shouldn't have. It should have been. The fact that it was a horror movie should have put off so many people. Oh, I can't watch that. It'll be too frightening. Oh, what do you mean? It's a sci-fi movie. It's horror movies are ghosts and spirits. What do you mean it's in space? What is that? By all intents, this should not have worked.
Yeah. I guess it was when was Halloween? Halloween was
79.
79. So it was around the same time. So I mean, maybe it could have ridden on the wave of slasher movies, but then slasher movies aren't generally set in space, are they? So yeah, it was an interesting kind of mashup.
We're not talking about Jason X. I like that movie. I think that movie got panned.
Is that a guilty pleasure? Is that a guilty pleasure?
It wasn't taking itself seriously.
No, it wasn't.
It was having a bit of fun.
Yes.
Leprechaun
couldn't take it. Oh. Yeah.
And Bloodlines was a good movie. Hellraiser Bloodlines was actually a good movie, even though
I never saw that one. I think I saw the first 3 Hellraiser movies and I called it a day after that, I think.
Right. Well, Hellraiser actually, it got a lot of hate because it starts off in the space station, but it's actually a legacy fulfilling itself. And believe it or not, a decent movie, but it just got panned and people wrote it off.
Oh, I didn't even know it was set in space. I knew nothing about that.
Oh yeah. It starts off, but then it goes back to sort of Edwardian times, and then goes through the 20th century.
Very arty.
Because it's the Marchant. It's a tale of the Marchant, the person that built the puzzle box of the Lament configuration.
Okay.
And his bloodline is basically carried.
Oh.
It's actually a pretty decent story. There are some hammy bits in it because it's the 80s, but all in all, it's actually a solid entry, which people give a lot of hate for.
Yeah.
So
no, it's completely passive one.
Completely passive, by the way. They're just few and far between because it's a strange phenomenon, yet we can have tons of ocean-based horror.
Yeah. I mean, we had... There were a bunch of Alien clones, weren't there, that came out pretty much straight away.
Lit the spark. This lit the spark.
Yeah. And then into the 80s, we did get it's like Alien, but underwater. And there was quite a few of those as well. But I mean, I can remember there was a TV movie not long after Alien came out, The Intruder Within, I think it was called. Which pretty much, it was Alien, but on an oil rig, an actual oil rig, because it was cheaper than building a set for a spaceship. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. It was pretty much the exact same. Yeah.
The difference is today, though, they were like straight to video VHS. Don't forget, this is the birth of the VHS era.
Yeah.
So you had your cinema movies, but you could,
yeah, your low budget.
People don't. I was watching something there actually. So each VHS tape was sold to the rental store for like 120 quid.
Right.
So each one they would have spent 1,000 quid, say a new rental, new release come out. They would have bought 5 copies. There's 500-600 quid.
Yeah.
They rented them out 3-4 quid a time. That's why everyone says streaming killed the VHS, but it wasn't. It was the home DVD. That's what killed VHS rentals.
Okay.
I mean, there's a whole history there, but they're able to make these knockoffs. They were never going to make a cinema. But in the back, you go for a Friday night and you're buying your little box of sweeties and popcorn, and you're going with a family and stick something for 3 quid under the tape. Yeah, they were going to make their money back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
And you always get that. The problem today is the knockoffs are actually appearing in the cinema screens. That's the standard. It's the flipping knockoff.
Oh, yes, they are. It's them that are getting the cinema time, whereas the good films nobody's seeing.
It's so funny.
Yeah. There's very
Oh, there's
interesting.
Jonathan. Obviously Jonathan couldn't make it tonight. He pesky work got in the way. Glad you popped in, mate. Good to see you. And obviously we'll be talking in the new year.
Yeah, I mean, he was the person you needed to talk about.
Well, he
aliens.
was going to be on this, but he said yesterday just work decided to wanted them in tonight, and it's like he was
shame.
actually he wasn't happy about it.
No, I'm sure he wasn't, because he likes to talk about Alien, does John?
Oh yeah, but that's I did an unboxing earlier on of his game Pressure, and
Oh yeah,
you can see the whole Alien vibe.
Yes, I mean, I think
and
it's Aliens with Pressure. Those
Yeah.
Dark Places was definitely an Alien vibe.
Yeah, that's next time.
That's
I
interesting.
should have got that one first, but
I'll be
picking that
It's a
up.
great
Don't worry.
game. It's a great game. It's a great game.
Yeah, but then it just shows if this hadn't have worked, would we have had any of this today?
Well, no. I mean, the industrial sci-fi. It probably kicked off the industrial sci-fi kind of genre as a genre. And what do we have coming after that? Back in the 80s, we had things like I mean, not necessarily good films, but things like Moon 44, and films like that kind of came along with that same aesthetic, wasn't it? It definitely, obviously, stirred something up, and
but that's what you know. It's movies like this that come along, and that's what starts, and it keeps the thing refreshed. Yeah, it does get beaten to death, but then that's when you get the new idea.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Outland. That was the obvious one, wasn't it? Outland. When
oh yeah, God, I remember that was
yeah. Sean Connery, High Noon in Space, back in that was 81.
Yeah, Dark Star.
I don't think that. I mean, I guess, mind you, saying that wasn't the
Black
script
Hole as well, but.
But Dark Star was, there's a connection there with Alien, isn't there? And Dan O'Bannon, was it? I know Dan O'Bannon starred in Dark Star, I think, and I'm sure he did.
John Carpenter and co-written with Dan O'Bannon.
Yeah, and I think Dan O'Bannon, he did a script, or at least did a draft of Alien as well.
Yeah, he was involved.
Which would explain the similarities between those, although Dark Star predates it by about 3
Yeah, but if you look at
years?
hang on, so we can call this up. But if you look at the aesthetics, where'd that picture go? No, wrong one. Oh, there's a ship. No, look at the ship.
Yeah.
We've got your shiny...
It's your sleek, white,
shiny sci-fi, which, like I said, people... Look, it's all... obviously a bit inside, but look at this. All the sort of bright lights. This is what people were getting burnt out with. I think that's where Alien and the tonal change...
Yeah.
That's what inspired. So that's, it's still too much of the 70s hamminess.
I guess.
Look at that, what I mean? You look at the Alien trailer, completely different. Like you were getting.
Dark Star was a comedy. That is another big difference between the two at the time. But there are, now that it's been mentioned, there were definite influences on Alien, I think, from Dark Star, and it would be Dan O'Bannon's input. And I think there's one scene in Dark Star which I've got it in my head may have actually kind of led to the whole Alien script. And there's actually a scene where one of the characters in Dark Star is searching the ship for an alien creature that's confounding him at every turn, like a giant. It's basically a beach ball with little feet.
Yeah.
But it's that same thing where he's being led through these.
So it's a darker version of Trouble with Troubles in.
I guess it kind of like that. But then I suppose maybe that's where ideas maybe that's from. Alien.
Ideas come from other ideas.
Oh,
there's nothing wrong with that. Where it's exciting is where you take an idea and you make it into something else.
Yeah. And Dark Star was a college film as well. It was it was made as a college project. It just happened to end up selling it. That was all. And it was Dan O'Bannon was involved in that. He went on with Alien, of course. take some of those elements from Dark Star and stick them in Alien, yeah, why not?
But you don't get a complete retread. You actually get
No,
something new.
it's not. Yeah, because it took a very different approach. It was, whereas Dark Star was a comedy and Alien most definitely was not.
Yeah, but that's that's what we need. There's it's the same as cooking and chefs. The ingredients are the ingredients.
Yeah,
and some chef might have developed a technique to do this, and another chef takes that and makes a completely new dish.
Yeah.
But that's
Whatever
how
you
things
do,
evolve,
right?
and that's how things become
Well,
new.
I come back to that whole. There's only X amount of stories. I can't remember. Is it 12 types of stories or something?
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's what you do, how you put your spin on it.
Exactly, right?
Something like even the dialogue being used can make a story completely new.
Yes, yeah. Just don't get George Lucas to write it. That's
no, don't have him write dialogue about it. God. I saw your laser sword. Oh God! I remember like I remember in the cinema just going
yeah,
and just
rolling. That's a good trick. Yeah,
I actually felt like, what are you doing?
Yeah, never mind.
Oh well, but that's that's the danger though.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you end up getting sued or something for this.
Here, I would have been go back if I was going to get sued. I'd be no.
We're messing with Disney now, mate. You're messing with Disney.
Oh, you should see my Poltergeist review. The one with the camera. I want to talk about Kathleen McCunt Kennedy.
Oh,
her first movie. I just straight out there. I saw her name pop up in that. That was her first one. She like.
You know what? I had no idea that she was involved in that.
Oh, she humped the leg of everybody. That's how she got where she was.
Ooh.
Oh, she was good. I don't know what you put in that coffee of hers or what came with the coffee that she served, but my word, she got her name.
She did all right for herself. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Obviously needed that amount of plastic surgery to keep her there too. Yeah.
He's not bitter, folks. He's not
on
bitter.
This channel. I do not care. Hot coffee, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this one because this.
I think we
before Ridley Scott shit the bed. This was actually a masterpiece.
Yes.
It was. It was not so much the movie itself, but the seeds that were sown.
Yeah.
And the ideas that weren't portrayed on screen. I think it's what made this spark the imagination. The questions that weren't answered. Who was the corporation?
Yeah.
Where were these orders? Why did they know about the alien? Who was the space jockey?
Yeah. So that's a good point. So when the sequels come along, and even Aliens, which everybody admits is an absolute classic film, and starts explaining some of these things away, do you feel that kind of got diminished a little?
Yeah, because it didn't expand out.
No.
They fell into the trap of this culture of explain everything.
Yeah.
But I think Aliens managed, we'll make out a whole review in itself.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They gave enough that this existed and people knew about it, and it was 70 years later. But there's still mystery there, and there's still new things to discover.
Yeah. Suppose.
Like I said, if you look at some of that particular cocoon scene that was cut from the original movie, that was a good choice.
Yeah,
because Ripley with the flamethrower, she wouldn't have got her agency in the second one or coming of age,
right? Yeah,
where this her own, she was brilliant character, she perfect role of. She's a third officer, all of a sudden thrust into command. Even the fact that I have access to Mother now, like those sort of statements made in this movie. What do you mean I have access to Mother? Why is there a secret compartment when this is only a tug ship?
What's the big deal with that?
Speak to the corporation. What's going on there?
Yeah, and I guess back with Alien as well. That whole thing, it was almost like it was the computer that was in charge. That was kind of the impression you were getting, right? That
Yeah,
that was the
they're
computer.
almost trying to rip off Hal slightly, but
A little bit, and maybe a little bit. But you kind of that was you didn't know that if there was a person on the end of when they're asking these questions.
yeah, where's it coming from? Where are these directives?
Yeah, is this a computer that's making this decision? What's the deal?
Why
here?
can't they reach any space stations, but they can still get commands?
Yeah, which would mean that it was a computer, like some AI. Wait, I mean, we know now Mother is an AI, right?
Yeah, but we didn't then, and that's what spawned the questions. That's what had people so excited for the second one.
Yeah.
And go on, like one thing about because obviously we're from the role playing world.
Yeah,
you can't make a role playing game without making it interesting. So you can't make if a franchise is dull and doesn't have an expanded universe or doesn't have enough there to build a world out of, you're not going to make a good game. There has to be something there, and that's one thing why I advocate role playing. I say to people, reach out, and even if you're not planning to play the game, read the material. There's some of the best written material out there.
Yeah, some great ideas.
You have to have that curiosity. You have to have that level of detail. You have to have that excitement about building the world, which I think is completely lost in the entertainment industry now. But it's still there in the role playing now. I know there's elements trying to sneak in, and that's why maybe a wee bit of gatekeeping needs to happen, because those same grifters that have burned through every other franchise are trying to come into the role playing world and just mediocre their way along, and it could destroy like the whole hobby. So, but you couldn't build the Alien game, for example. It wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes if there wasn't this good bedrock to build off. Now, Ridley Scott is trying to destroy it as quickly as he can for some reason before he has a strangle wank and gets found in a hotel room somewhere. But
it is, it's kind of. I mean, I liked. I mean, I think the weird reason the first one really worked was because, like you say, it preserved that there's that element of mystery. You didn't really understand what was going on, but you weren't meant to, I suppose, either. That was the point. What makes something scary is not knowing what it is. Okay, yeah. And we know
just the alien, the corporate element. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all of that.
The actual politics of the corporate. That was frightening. What do you mean you're sending me out here to die and I'm only a tug ship? You know, what? I'm not an exec that's a cutthroat executive making a power play. I just put this tug ship of valuable ore, and as long as I get it to home in time and nothing blows up, I've done my bit. Why do you send me out to die?
So I'm one of your employees, and if you're going to do this to me, what are you going to do to anybody else, right? Yeah. So there's that element. There's the whole idea of mother and what mother actually is and what that entails. Because I don't know, when you're watching the film, when they refer to mother, it's, I don't know, it seems a little bit
it's almost a religious aspect to it.
Yeah, like reverential. Yeah, I was actually going to say reverential. I was thinking, is that too much?
And maybe? The chamber, no, because it's almost like an antechamber, isn't it? It's almost like a
it's like you're the priest. You're the only one that can speak.
In the confessional, so to speak. It's weird.
Yeah, and it's just a computer. But you're able to ask this computer very, very specific questions, like what are my chances?
Did you ever play those games back in the day with the Commodore 64? Okay, you go left. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Sorry, I don't understand.
yeah. Man, mother is not like that.
Granny's Garden. If you've ever went to school in the 70s, 80s, you'd have played Granny's Garden.
Yeah.
God, I don't understand.
I think that the Hobbit was one of the ones that everybody holds up with that, with the go west or whatever. Yeah. So but mother kind of, the when they refer to it, and the fact that only one person on the ship at any one time seems to have access to it, it kind of, it is an almost like it's a big deal. I mean, a bit like paranoia, going back to the role-playing thing, that whole friend computer type thing. Which kind of feels a little bit weird. And
yeah, but then it's bringing more questions, and then you're engaged. You're wondering why.
Yeah,
and then that's where fan fiction starts. That's where okay, here's we do a wee bit of the fans start building a bit of a universe
yeah,
themselves, and
yeah.
the franchise, and franchises weren't really a thing. There was no idea of franchises back then.
No, not really.
That was
No,
a
it's right.
child of the 80s.
Mm.
Everything was a standalone movie, not expected to make sequels. Even sequels weren't really. When did Conan come out?
That was 80s, yeah, early
That was
80s,
80s.
82, I think, wasn't it?
The idea of sequels that weren't really a thing. They were all standalone movies. Everything was his own entity. So I don't think there wasn't that thought in mind.
No. No, certainly. I mean, although with Alien again, you pipe down.
I can't wait for the 2024 Alien sequel where xenomorphs learn English and explain that they were only aggressive because they were abused by white xenomorphs, starring Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, I wonder. That's right, because obviously Ripley wasn't a character because female leads didn't exist until Jennifer Lawrence. That's the rules, apparently.
Oh, I've heard this.
Yeah,
it's mentioned before.
So no such thing. So Ripley wasn't a strong female character. She was just a servant of the patriarchy. Like she wasn't a command position. She didn't bust people's balls. She didn't in the end.
I don't know when that decision, because I believe in the original script that Ripley wasn't meant to be a female character. I don't think originally. So that obviously came in. I don't know if that was Ridley's influence or not, but
you know what? But they have all these discussions afterwards. But have you ever formulated an idea in your head?
Oh, don't formulate ideas.
But you'll have 100 before you get to the thing.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
What about this?
Kind of the iteration. Yeah.
Even running the game, like you'll have, okay, here's a scenario, but here's NPCs 1, 2, 3. But actually, hang on a minute, might need NPC 5 or 6. That's human nature. Of course, wasn't meant to be. It could have been anything. That's part of the process.
Yeah,
people are trying to make more. I think.
Perhaps they do. Although there was the one thing, once they decided that Ripley was female, and at the end there was apparently the original script involved the alien actually in the shuttle ripping her head off, and so killing her as well, and then actually speaking into the microphone, onto the radio, imitating Dallas's voice, of them basically reporting that that this was the lifeboat and the alien was going to hide out on the lifeboat until it was rescued or whatever. But apparently there was some throwback from that, because obviously they didn't like the idea of a female character being killed in that way. It seemed, and so they ended up having to change it. I mean, it worked out for the better, I think.
Oh, that would have been a horrendous ending,
wouldn't it? Would that not have been? I mean, for one, having the alien speak in Dallas's voice would have been.
There was a comic book, where they had. I don't know if you've seen this one. They had a synth xenomorph.
All right.
It's a bit like Red, but basically they had a synth xenomorph because they could use it because it was similar to Regurgitations, that shitty one with Big Ugly Dude, where they had basically aliens on a research vessel. So they had a synth alien, so they could use it to go back and basically go in amongst them.
Oh, okay.
And it smoked cigars and stuff when it was.
Oh God. Yeah.
It's okay for a comic book.
Yeah, you can get away with more of that stuff in a
But if that had appeared on screen, just been like, nah.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like something more that would have appeared in Spaceballs, to be honest.
It had that sort of. It did have that sort of thing about it.
Yeah.
But then again, once again, that's the comic books can, they did all these alternate timelines and
yeah. It's not necessarily canon, right?
Yeah. Corporations were trying to use bad stuff, but it was just it worked for that moment in the comic book, but if they had put that on screen, oh my god, that would have just been ridiculous.
Yeah, that would have
like the alien hybrid going, "Mama." It's like, me now. Did you forget about that one?
Yes, I did.
So
yeah, thank you for reminding me.
If they had known it was going that direction, I think they would have just burnt the reels.
Yeah.
If I was back in 1979 and knew where this was going to go, I might have just went, "Oh, oops, oh dear, it's gone. It's never happening." Think of something else.
Oh god.
Yeah. Trying to think. The reveal of Ash in this, in Order 937, just that was another like pivotal point in this, which
just
added something else. We now had the idea of synthetics in this movie, so we now have artificial beings, AI. That's and that will be played with. That became a theme of the 80s, especially with the Terminator franchise. There's that whole, off the back of Asimov, thinking machines and are they human, are they not human? Can they pass for human?
Yeah. 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 I mean, the reveal of Ash. I mean, it was really messy, wasn't it, for a start? I remember being pretty grossed out about that when it first happened, especially because he was a robot.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very messy robot, wasn't he? When that was revealed, that was kind of weird because I couldn't tell, and I was watching it recently as well. Is when Parker says it's a goddamn robot, and I was trying to figure out by the way he says it. Does that imply that they know that these things exist, these robots exist? Because
you didn't know.
No. And I didn't know if that was he was kind of surprised that Ash was a robot, or the fact that it's a fucking robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether or not that they were supposed to be commonplace, and it seems that later on, yes, they were, because they had these various different versions, didn't they?
But maybe at the stage of development,
there
were robots, but the idea of a synth,
passing as a human.
It was left open for your interpretation.
Yeah.
And once again, that's another aspect of the horror. How many AI machines killing mankind and taking over and replacing people, invasion of the body snatchers, all that kind of stuff. Who's that standing beside you? Is it your friend, or is it a replacement of your friend? There's a whole level of horror that was brought into this, and it was just company mandated. That could have been a horror movie in itself, just the fact that there were synths on board and had their own agenda.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could, you could have just turned it into the synth killing the crew instead of the alien, right? It still would have been a frightening thing. I guess it can't crawl into the air vents and hide around in those things as easy as the alien did, but it would have been in fact, that's probably been done. The Saturn 3.
Well, it was done later on with the thing, that they brought that in.
Yeah.
Who is it? McCready or Childs?
Oh, which side of the fence are you on with that one? Do you know?
And if you're on the wrong side of the fence, then I hate your guts, and you need to be thrown out of your home and sacked from your job and blah blah blah. Because that's 2023.
Yeah,
that's the only form of discussion that's allowed these days.
Yeah. So which are you, Childs or McCready?
I wouldn't see them have Kurt Russell, being the bad guy in the end. So I'm thinking Childs.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I've sort of been with McCready the whole way through the film.
Yeah.
Just that logic, you've seen it more. It's almost a point of view from his perspective. He's the main character.
And so, you don't see him off screen very often, I suppose. So
no.
It's very difficult. Yeah.
So just for that reason is why I think it would have been Childs.
Yeah. You don't buy into the whole, but Childs' breath. If you look at Childs' breath at the end, there's no. I've not checked.
At the end of the day, I don't know. You could have written
and
it
that's
that
the
way.
point. You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
No, I don't want that question answered, because that's what keeps that movie alive. Yeah. And that's what that's what they've done with this movie. They've put more questions in, as many questions as plot points. It's a solid plot from start to end. It's a basic film.
It doesn't matter if things don't get answered, right? They don't have to be answered. You can leave it to your own imagination if you want, or don't.
Or have you talking
just-
for nearly 2 hours on a podcast, like
Oh, right, exactly,
30
right?
years later? Do you know what I mean? About the same bloody movie.
Yeah,
That's clever.
precisely.
You know,
Yeah,
put
they
it-
knew what they were doing. They knew
It's
what
a
they
shame
were
they didn't
doing.
make any sequels, eh? And ruin it all.
Can you imagine if they did? I bet they'd have
Oh,
been
that'd be
terrible.
awful. You just feel betrayed, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I suppose on that, you know, like I said, it's a straightforward horror movie. It's a straightforward script. You know,
Yeah.
A to B doesn't take in any strange twists or turns. Just the
No.
world building's what makes this intriguing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's been described as it's a haunted house in space. It's that kind of film, right? A lot of people have described it as that, and I guess it is. The story is not complicated. It's not that, you know, there's some twists in it, I guess, but there's
Mhm.
it is a fairly straightforward horror film, a scary film.
Yeah, and
crew being hunted down by something.
Yeah.
You know,
we
group of people.
don't quite know what. We see it briefly.
Yeah.
We sort of know what it looks like, but we've no idea what it.
Well, that's another good point, isn't it? We don't see a lot of the creature, do we?
No.
In fact, I think somebody said it. I think it's on screen for 4 minutes throughout the entire film, and you don't see it until about an hour in. Which is
cut out
another
that scene with God, what do you call her? Not Kim. What's the other
Brett.
girl's name? That
Oh, Lambert.
Lambert, right?
Yeah.
There's a scene where you see the thing actually crawling up towards her, and it looked ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Yes, because they wanted it to move in an unusual way, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it crawled
like
on its
back,
on its-
walking
yeah.
along and then stood up. But
yeah,
it just looked. It showed too much of it for a start. It looked ridiculous.
yes,
Where the idea of this thing,
yeah,
coming from the shadows, that's what brought
yeah.
the
I mean,
terror.
I think it's a similar thing to Jaws, isn't it? Jaws is another one of those films where you don't actually see much of the actual shark until you're a good way into the film, and it uses that very well to build tension. And this does the same thing. I mean, I guess it's Jaws. It is Jaws in space, right? This film, maybe.
Yeah, it's got the elements there. Why not?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there's nothing wrong. Once again, there's nothing wrong with using tried and tested formulas.
No.
That's not the issue with good storytelling.
I mean, I suppose the problem is if you immediately recognize this film, like right from the get go, oh, now this is just such and such in space. Then
no, but this is 30 years plus of reflection.
Exactly.
Talking,
you have to watch the film a million times and
get all the beats.
You can see the but the fact that the creature doesn't get revealed means that it makes it more frightening. It raises the tension quite a bit. I mean, and I still think probably my favorite scene in the whole film is the one with Dallas in the air ducts. That whole scene.
Even
you don't see
airlocks that as it closed.
Yeah. Everything
wasn't swish, and
no,
it was. You know, these things.
Yeah, it's like running your fingers down a blackboard,
minimum
right?
maintenance because it's not an important part. You know, I mean, and that feeling of being shut in, that was it. You know, once they're closed, they're not.
And they were quite slow, so you knew that you weren't getting out quick in that situation. He was stuck in there with it, and then the addition of the motion tracker, which of course was used then throughout the entire. You know, Aliens as well used it to great effect, just to ramp up the tension. You don't see the creature, you don't have to.
No, you can see
just
the impression.
Yeah, and you know that it's coming, and that made that. It's probably in terms of tension, I thought that was probably one of the high points for me in the entire film. Is just that whole thing, not seeing the creature, except very very briefly as he turns his torch round and there it is.
Yep. And the fact these are competent people, they're not trained for this environment, but they're not idiots either.
But
they're able to improvise.
And he kind of, I think the way they react as well in that situation. I hadn't really noticed it until I watched it again. Tom Skerritt was great in that bit because he's like He's a big brave guy, goes into the air ducts, but you see as he goes through, he starts to get. You can see he's starting to get a little bit more frightened the longer he's in there.
Yeah, because
and
the
that
reality
seems,
of you're out in the open, then you're in this enclosed space, and they use the fact, and then the more you're in, oh dear, I'm in trouble.
and
Emperor
I
or
want to
not,
get
you're
out of
like-
here now. And the moment he says, of course, no, I want to get out of here, that's when, oh, it suddenly reappears on the scope and I can see it coming towards you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But his reaction in that as well, at that moment where he's clearly can't decide whether he's going up, down, or back the way he came at that point. And just looking around, I thought it was, I don't know, it was really good. I just that very, really small, little small elements like that kind of thing, just really ramped up, made it a bit more believable.
Yeah, and that's
good.
once again just good storytelling.
Yeah, and good acting.
Which is what I don't understand, how have they missed all these gems are, you know, I mean, the formulas are there. All you have to do is put it into a new idea. How's that all been lost? It's such a tragedy.
Well, is it a case of now that they know they're rehashing the old idea,
but it's not working?
So they know they can't surprise you anymore. They can't surprise you with it because you've already seen it. So they don't even try. They just go for the quick and easy shot, don't they?
But you're saying, but how come independent filmmakers are still trying? I mean, I talk to independent filmmakers and this, and they try to get crowdfunding for their movie to happen. They've got an idea, you know, I mean, they're trying to do something new, bring something to the genre, and still attempting to, you know, create.
Yeah, because
they're making movies on like a couple of thousand.
Yeah, and they don't have a studio to try and impress.
No, it's just people like you and me just funding them. People I talk to regularly, Acrostar Films, like they're making movies like every couple of months, and they're just doing it like 90% through crowdfunding and large donations, you know, and they're still able to, like the latest one that I reviewed, Attack of the Corn Zombies. It's a zombie movie, but the element is from infected corn, and instead of just being a zombie, the corn's growing. So they eat the corn. It's actually the corn taking them over. So they're almost like plant-based.
Okay.
There's there's a zombie twist. There's radioactive waste. You know, there's infected food. There's it all in there. There's a new property.
Yeah.
Why the hell not? You know, I mean, people can still create, but these studios have just they're just full of grifters and the most aggressive people. That's why they're so aggressive about negative feedback, because they know they don't belong there. They haven't got there by merits.
Right.
They either know somebody, they've, you know, democracy, they've just got handshaked in.
Yeah.
They don't have the talent to be there. They can't justify their position. So that's why they're like dealing with civil servants. You know, civil servants always they're terrified of being sacked, and they always talk about that, but they never do. But because they know in the back of their mind they're not doing anything useful.
Right.
Hence their whole culture.
Okay.
You know,
it's
that the whole mindset. And unfortunately the entertainment industry has become the civil service. You know, it's that mindset and it's that death. That's why it's dying.
Yeah.
Because everything's formulaic, afraid to try anything new. So you'll not see movies like this happen, like, until there's a complete change in culture and shift.
I suppose.
We'll not get the new Alien. We'll just get the retread of the original. It's almost like people stopped creating like mid-80s.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. So in terms of the Alien franchise, you're looking forward to the new?
No. Not at all. I feel nothing, not even anger.
Yeah.
Just
it's gone that far. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If it kind of returns to the roots, I don't know how it could.
No, because they've done, you know, I mean, they've already they've shown it with even, what was it, Resurrections. They showed it that they just don't care anymore. Then we got Prometheus, and that was just like, how did they have better technology in Prometheus than this? Like everything's all glowy, 3D touch screens and nonsense. Where how did that work? Like, it didn't even try to make it look the same.
No,
and it was all high. Let's make us a high art. They went back to the 70s. Oh, look at the scene with David. It's all polished and that sort of. Oh, this isn't for the peasants to watch. This is for the high thinkers. And you're like, okay, right, fine. I'm just a dummy, so I'll not get excited. That's what I never even watched Covenant. I just
no. I tell you, I've skipped that one myself up till
yeah.
now.
I have no desire of, even if it popped up on streaming. I wouldn't. No interest in clicking on it. No. So they've already, even before this one comes out, I've already had the apathy because they've retreaded it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm curious, because I don't think I've heard many good things about Covenant, and I remember coming out of the cinema after seeing Prometheus and I was with a group of friends at the time, and they were all seemed to think, oh yeah, it was really good, and I came out disappointed, and my wife will tell you that I come out of every film that I see now disappointed. But that one, yeah, I felt that. I definitely felt that one.
Oh yeah,
it just seemed stupid. Everything about it was stupid.
They cheapened everything.
Yeah,
and the worst thing they did was, which was brought in this, was the space jockey.
Yeah,
there was a decades old mystery that was a talking point. That's what kept this thing alive. Those sort of questions kept people talking about the movie. And when they brought that out, it was abysmal.
Yeah.
Like, it really did feel like a betrayal. It's like, we have kept your franchise going for years, and it's this contempt of fans. There is utter contempt.
Yeah.
You're just the plebs. I'm doing this for my fellow Hollywood friends, because the civil service mentality, the money's always there. It just comes off the money tree. Like civil servants think, oh, they don't have to actually earn anything. The money's always there, so you have that lazy attitude. That's what their attitude is. And it's going to take these companies, and we're starting to see it happen now, but it's so gigantic. It's going to take a long time. Like, we're talking about another five years at least before it really starts to bite in.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to run damage control. They're trying to hide it, but these big companies are really feeling the pinch now, because you don't even want to get up and go.
No.
And streaming was a great idea when it came out for old video libraries. That was brilliant. The idea of you could have the video shop on screen. When they started making their own thing, they went the same route as TV. And people already switched off from TV.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird one, isn't it? Cinema doesn't seem like an event like it used to be.
No, because there's no reason to get excited.
Yeah. I was talking about
back
that.
Then, this was exciting. This was groundbreaking.
Yeah. Well, all around that time. And I think, science fiction was
there was hits, there was misses, of course.
Oh, yes. I mean, there were probably a lot more misses, but just made the
it's all right, Ansley,
seem even better.
If you watch back some of my reviews and you hear my rants when I go on, your audience has witnessed me going off on one about this, because it's a real bugbear.
Yeah, I am a grumpy old man. If you look back, there were probably more. There'd be more misses, wouldn't there, than hits. But also, I don't think wasn't there. Maybe there was also an instance of maybe towards in the 70s. I'm thinking more. There was perhaps less being thrown at you. Now you're getting stuff thrown at you from every direction, aren't you? Streaming services. You get the cinema occasionally, and things like Sky TV. I remember when I was a kid, a film came on at the cinema. You had to wait. It was at least 3 years before that would make it onto TV, right? And now it's like, 2 weeks after.
Or the same
there
time,
it is.
These stupid deals where
so you don't have to go to the cinema to see the latest film anymore. You can just wait for it to appear on Sky or whatever, and then and just watch it at home. So you don't get that feeling that like going to the cinema is a big event, and I that's one of the things I really miss. I really lament that. That's
because you want to go see it first. You want to talk to people about it. You want that excitement,
Yeah.
but that is gone. But it's also part of the product as well.
Yeah.
Because they've really fluffed up, and that's why we're even now, because they're going back and they're editing movies because you might be too sensitive to watch them.
Oh yeah.
So now they're editing movies that you might have watched, so they're removing them. You go to watch one now and it's gone. They'll pluck it out. So now we're starting to go back in time. We're seeing a resurgence of physical media.
Well, that kind of reminds me of when they used to put a film on the television. And you'd see all those bits that would be cut out, and all the swear words would have been overdubbed.
Yeah.
Hey, you fund my wife, you money funner.
Oh dear. But then that's why you had physical, because then you could make a choice. It was rated. You knew what you're going to watch. Yeah. And once again, you're allowed to be a grown up. You're allowed to watch grown up.
Make your own decisions, right?
Yeah. But it's all geared. But just sort of final thought before I wrap up this. Going back when this movie came out, would you have even remotely expected it to be today where it was at the sort of beginning of a franchise?
No.
Would you have imagined?
I probably no, because it wasn't really structured in a way that there was much left where you wouldn't have thought they'd be able to get a sequel out of it, really, would you? To be fair,
and that sequel was a real surprise.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, and it took a long time before a sequel actually did appear as well, right? What is it, for 86, 87 when Aliens came out? From 7? Yeah, so it was quite a lengthy time before. So even though Alien was incredibly successful at the time, whereas now they would have had the sequel planned. Right,
yeah, everything's a franchise. It can't make a good standalone movie, and then
yeah,
I think that's what people are tedious of as well. It's just, oh right, okay,
yeah, you know that, there's going to be a sequel. Of course there is, regardless of how it ends. But this one, it ended in a way that, except for one bit, which I'll talk about in a minute. You kind of thought that was it. There was no real chance of a sequel. There was the alien. It was gone. It was destroyed with the when she threw it out the airlock, etc. But there was, I noticed, I don't know why I hadn't spotted it before when I watched it last night. There is that one scene where the alien finds the Jonesy in the cat box.
Yeah, and he didn't eat the cat.
No, he didn't eat the cat.
But then he wasn't eating anybody. He was killing them.
Well, he did. He killed Parker and Lambert. They would, because you saw.
But he
the
wasn't
bodies
eating.
there,
It wasn't
right?
for food.
No. But you didn't find. They didn't find the body of Brett, and they didn't find the body of.
Excuse me.
Of Dallas, even though the director's cut shows us what happened.
That scene, which I'm glad.
So we can assume, but what did he do with the bodies for those people? So maybe it was eating them. But so he didn't eat Jonesy for some reason. But there was that one scene. It's very brief where you're seeing the view from out of the cat box over Jonesy's head as the alien kind of its face comes down in front of the cat box and he's like looking in. And I thought, was that them trying to imply that maybe it had done something to Jones so that it wouldn't be a total shock if a sequel came out where she gets back to
Earth
and Jones is infected in some way, and there's your sequel. Because it just seemed like a weird thing to have put in. That one little scene. It just seemed like a strange.
But it was also
moment.
showing it wasn't a mindless killing machine, and this is where the idea of a bioweapon,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which then got over-explained, but they were hinting that it's a bioweapon. In fact, I think it was brought up that the Weapons Division wanted it.
Yes. Yeah.
And the fact that the company knew about it, and they were.
Yeah. I mean, that's another mystery, isn't it? About them knowing about it. How did they know about it? Had they tried to get it before? What was the deal? Anyway.
Well, Maybe they'll make sequels. We'll find out.
Oh, prequel. Then we'll have another. There you go, Ridley.
Oh, yeah, another prequel to explain it. But, yeah. It's nice to
but
imagine, eh? I just say they made 3 movies, and then it's a shame that it just finished off the trilogy nice. Then
Yeah.
it would have been nice maybe they had made more, but they didn't. So
yeah, some people just don't know when to stop, right?
Well,
yeah. So that's my little. I did have a think that maybe they did intend on doing a sequel or something. I don't know. You'll have to go and watch it. You have to
enough
watch
little
that
seeds.
bit. Yeah.
Little seeds planted, and that's what
but
makes
they
this
didn't.
movie.
They didn't
so
go along
intriguing.
with that. They just decided, hey, wait a minute. There's lots of eggs left on that planet.
What would happen if you put a colony there?
Well, that'd be a good idea. Let's go find out. Yeah.
And that's a conversation for another time.
Exactly.
If hopefully, who knows, people might turn up.
Yeah.
But Parrot, thanks very much for turning up, mate.
No,
appreciate having you on board.
Sorry I was late, and I'll try to remember the correct timings next time.
Right. Normally I do this and have calendar invites, but because we're doing it Discord, it's a bit trickier.
Yeah, sure.
But still, again, good chat. Good to just remind ourselves why we're playing the game we're playing, and obviously in the new year we'll be getting ready to start Destroyer of Worlds, and hoo-ha, we'll be Marines. And,
Marines. Oh my god,
kicking ass, because what could go wrong there?
I mean, absolutely nothing. No, yeah, giving competent people heavy weapons, nothing bad can happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's all good. But there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed that, and don't forget as well, check out our Chart of the Gods series so far, Alien RPG. It's every other Tuesday. Obviously, bad time of year, we'll be picking us all up in the new year, back into full production again. But as always, keep up to date with the channel, do the typey clicky things, and until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.
Bye-bye.